Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is as you join us for this next online worship service from First Parish Church of Kingston, Massachusetts. I am the Reverend Monica Jacobson Tennyson. I serve this church as its minister. I use she, her pronouns, and I am so glad that you have come to spend this time with us in remembering what it is that we are here to do with our precious lives. To begin, we center ourselves with the introit. The words are, "What we need is here," to remind us of the truth that so much of what we most need, love and courage and commitment and strength, those things are already within us, here, wherever here may be for you today. Please join with me in singing. If you have a chalice or a candle or the Worship Web app available to you where you are, I invite you to join with me now in lighting a chalice. This act of kindling a flame is used by Unitarian Universalists in many places across the country and around the world to indicate the creation of a sacred space and time. We kindle these flames to create our moments for centering and to remember the community that we create together when we are able to gather and that we create at a distance, each of us creating a point of light where we are, all of them creating a constellation of love and justice and connection. To help us further know the spaces where we are now as sacred, please join in singing hymn number 1, Prayer for This House.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry about these windows. May the roar and rain go by. By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This heart, though all the world grow chill, will keep us warm. Peace shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep hate out and hold love in.
Hi, Reverend Monica.
Hi, Jen.
I have Ellery with me today.
Hi, Ellery. He's in your hand.
you can see how teensy he is.
He is a very small church mouse.
And he might be very small, but he thinks about big things.
Mm-hmm.
And the big thing that he has been thinking about this week is covenant, because he found our family covenant hanging on the wall. And so we've been having a lot of conversations about that. He thought maybe if you haven't seen our covenant that you would like to.
That'd be great. Let's look at your family covenant.
All right. We have it right here.
Aha.
This is
Maybe-
our family covenant.
Maybe you can summarize for us because it's a little hard to read things on Zoom.
Yeah. So our covenant is full of practices and promises. They're things that can help us love each other better. They're ways that we promise to take care of each other and things that we promise we'll practice. And Ellery thought that they sounded like some really good ideas, but he is new to our family and wanted to take a little bit of time to think about what it really means to be in covenant and whether they were promises that he felt comfortable making.
That sounds really smart. Good job, Ellery. Because we are a covenantal people as Unitarian Universalists and not a creedal people, we make these promises in our church communities and sometimes in our families about how we're going to be together and what we're going to do, rather than making creedal promises about what we're going to all choose to believe. Because we know we can have lots of different beliefs and lots of different ways of being, and we can still all share these commitments about how we want to be in the world and how we want to serve each other in the world. But it's a really big choice to commit to a covenant. And I think it's really smart of Ellery to take some time to ask questions and think about it and recognize that it really can make a difference in his life and in each of our lives to actually choose to live by a covenant in that way.
So as we've been talking about covenant this week, we've been talking about how this is not our first covenant in our family. We do a new one every year in September, right when the church year begins. And very often a new covenant will say different things than the old covenant says, because every time we agree to a covenant and we start practicing the things that are in the covenant, we change a little bit. We become better at practicing these things. And then when we make the covenant the next year, maybe we're ready to practice new things and different things and to make different promises.
That makes a lot of sense. I think when we say things out loud in a promise or in a covenant, we're hoping to move those promises inside us so that they become part of how we are in the world and part of how we are together in our family or in our community or in our relationships. So Jen, what's something that used to show up in your family covenant that has moved so much into the fabric of the family that it's not written out explicitly anymore?
We were just talking about this because it used to be in our covenant that we would do family service. That's what other people might call chores, but we call it serving the family, or we say family service, and it's something that we do twice a day. And it used to be part of our covenant when we first started making covenants that we would make sure that we would be practicing this thing, but we've now done it for so long together and promised it so well over time that we don't need to put it in the covenant anymore. Now it's just part of our day every single day.
Oh, that reminds me of how at church we have a covenant for how we are together as a congregation, and we have expectations of members. So people who've chosen to become a member of First Parish have certain things that they commit to do, which aren't written out in the covenant. They're just part of the fabric of how we create a community together.
That's right.
So like we say that the expectations of members are that each person is paying attention to their own spiritual growth. Each person is present in the life of the community, and each person shares of their resources. So they might give money, they might volunteer time. If they have special talents, they might do projects that really use their talents. if they've made art, they might bring it to hang up in the church, or that everybody contributes the ways that they can think of to contribute so that we can make a whole community together.
So it seems like what we're really saying is that covenants can help us in small communities like families, and also in big communities like churches.
Yeah, I think they're a practice of our faith that can help us, and they can happen just within our family unit, and they can happen within our church. And like you said, they can happen every year, because the covenants that we make and the promises that we make change us, and then they can change to grow and evolve with us and with our new understandings of how we want to be together and our new understandings of what the world needs. So I love that you write a family covenant together every fall. It really makes it a living document, just like Unitarian Universalism is a living faith.
It really does help us. And I would think that it would be something that maybe people could try if they wanted to.
Yeah, that could be a great project for people to try on, especially in this time when we're spending many more hours with the people that we live with than maybe we did before. This could be a good time to say, what would happen if we wrote a covenant together?
It has been really helpful during this time, and having Ellery with us now, that's a big transition for him and for us, because he used to live at church. So it's something that really keeps us mindful of the way that we want to be together.
Well, that's pretty cool. Thanks for sharing.
We'll talk to you later.
Can you hold Ellery up so I can say goodbye? Bye, Ellery. Have a good day.
We'll talk to you later on. Bye.
Please join with me in singing hymn number 145, As Tranquil Streams. This hymn was written in 1933 to celebrate the growing relationship between the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America, and to affirm the truth that within our congregations and within our varied movements which have come together to make the Unitarian Universalist Association that we now know, those movements, as we join together and make promises to each other, change us and help us to change the world. Please join in singing.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past, but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
In this time of creating community at a distance, we gather on Zoom to share our personal joys and sorrows. So at this time in our service, I will light these candles: red for courage and love, and gold for gratitude and blessing. A red candle for all the healthcare providers and the essential workers who risk themselves every day to offer healing and food and supplies and cleaning and transportation and so many things to enable all of us to live through one more day, to have what we need. A red candle for all those who are extra vulnerable in this time. Those who are unhoused or imprisoned or undocumented. Those who are at risk because of those with whom they shelter. Those who are at risk because of identities which make it harder for them to receive good medical care. We lift up these truths and we send our love. A red candle for all those who struggle today with mental illness, with food insecurity and financial insecurity, for all those who need hope to live into one more day. And a red candle for all those who are grieving, who have to do the hard task of beginning to live into a world which no longer contains a person precious to them. And for those who are living also with great fear because someone they love is very ill. We send our love. We light a gold candle for all the leaders all over the world, from national to local levels, who are making the best choices they can for as many people as possible. We light a gold candle for scientists who are racing to develop tests and treatments and vaccines at record speed. We light a gold candle for everyone creating things to help us in this time. Artists and musicians and teachers and writers offering us the gifts of sustenance for our spirits. A gold candle for all those who are practicing generosity, sharing what they have by porch drop-offs with neighbors, donations to food banks, pledging stimulus checks to organizations that serve the most vulnerable, and continuing to make masks and gowns and face shields and so much more, which is needed to protect precious human lives. A gold candle for spring, for the coming of flowers and new leaves and sunlight and warm days, which will hold us in this time. And a gold candle for love, which is always present in us, among us, and through us.
My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, the far-off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No stone can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevailed in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
I've been thinking about rituals this week. I know others are too. For example, Father Richard Rohr, who sends a daily meditation email, sent one today in which he wrote, "After decades of observation, I can honestly say that the United States is a ritually starved culture. We are too easily satisfied with simple rituals like blowing out the candles on our birthday cake. True rituals create liminal space, from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold. We need them to help us consciously spend time at the thresholds of our lives." Our theme for this month is thresholds, and they are a timely topic in so many ways. The beginning of May is a threshold time in every year. In the Wheel of the Year, it is observed as May Day or Beltane. It's a time when the slow turning of the wheel from winter to spring, which begins so subtly it's almost unnoticeable, suddenly becomes obvious. It's the beginning of solar summer, the period of the year with the greatest potential for solar energy and the longest days. This quarter of the year peaks on June 21st at the summer solstice, the single longest day of the year here in the Northern Hemisphere. For people who lived according to an agrarian calendar, as many people across Europe did centuries ago, this part of the solar cycle is important because it signifies the beginning of the growing time, the time of abundance as crops begin to flourish and days and nights grow warmer. The hard winter and the cold, hungry, early spring are coming to an end as late spring prepares to unfold into summer. Traditional Beltane observations of this time include the lighting of bonfires to honor the sun and to welcome the coming summer. In some communities, individuals would ritually extinguish their own household hearth fires and then gather to light ceremonial bonfires for the whole community. They would drive their cattle between the fires and then lead them out to the rich, lush pastures of high summer, where the cattle would feast on new grass. These Beltane fires were seen as curative and protective, so this ritual of driving the cows between the fires would have protected them on their way out to pasture. And once the fires had died down somewhat, to a height a person could jump over, the next Beltane ritual would begin, jumping over the flames. This was done for courage before a dangerous enterprise, for fertility and safe childbirth, for blessings on the unions of couples who jumped together. This act of leaping, these leaps of faith, marked transitions into new endeavors. The book In Nature's Honor by Patricia Montley says there is no official celebration of May Day in the United States, possibly because the founding English Puritans brought their disapproval across the Atlantic. Fortunately, our Puritan heritage is now part of our pluralistic Unitarian Universalism, which has plenty of room for the earth-based traditions that call us to pay attention to what the natural world can teach us and invite us to mark transitions with rituals and to understand what role those rituals can play in our lives. John O'Donohue, the Irish poet who has written many beautiful books, including a book of blessings entitled To Bless the Space Between Us, has this to say about thresholds and the turn of the seasons, both in the world and within us. He writes, "We are often surprised by change that seems to arrive out of nowhere. We find ourselves crossing some new threshold we had never anticipated. Like spring, secretly at work within the heart of winter, below the surface of our lives, huge changes are in fermentation. We never suspect a thing. Then, when the grip of some long-enduring winter mentality begins to loosen, we find ourselves vulnerable to a flourish of possibility, and we are suddenly negotiating the challenge of a threshold. At any time, you can ask yourself, at which threshold am I now standing? At this time in my life, what am I leaving? Where am I about to enter? What is preventing me from crossing my next threshold? What gift would enable me to do it? A threshold is not a simple boundary. It is a frontier that divides two different territories, rhythms, and atmospheres. Indeed, it is a lovely testimony to the fullness and integrity of an experience or a stage of life that it intensifies toward the end into a real frontier that cannot be crossed without the heart being passionately engaged and woken up. At this threshold, a great complexity of emotion comes alive. Confusion, fear, excitement, sadness, hope. This is one of the reasons such vital crossings were always clothed in ritual. It is wise in your own life to be able to recognize and to acknowledge the key thresholds, to take your time, to feel all varieties of presence that accrue there, to listen inward with complete attention until you hear the inner voice calling you forward. The time has come to cross. We certainly find ourselves now at thresholds of change with the great complexities of emotions that we meet there. We have crossed over onto one great threshold as a whole world. We are dividing into two different territories of before the pandemic and after. And here, on the threshold between them, we may find ourselves yearning for the time after, yearning for the knowledge of what will be, what will change, how will we be changed, seeking the certainty of a new normal instead of so much more unknowing. We know that crossing thresholds changes us. How could it not? We know that this is why we are drawn to mark them with ritual. Milestone birthday celebrations, weddings, baby showers, wakes and funerals. And so many rituals are disrupted now, even as we reinvent them and seek to make them work on Zoom and at a distance. It is one of the strange gifts of this threshold time. In order to carry on with the essence of things, with the truly meaningful parts, we have to take time to strip away what has been simply habit. We have to become clear about what is most meaningful to us. And we have to acknowledge and spend time with the truth that some things cannot be recreated right now. And that is simply a sadness that we must hold while we have to linger on this threshold. I was on a Zoom call with a group of other ministers earlier this week, brainstorming what worship can look like in these times. And person after person said, I can meaningfully recreate many parts of a service, but I can't recreate singing together. And I'm sad about that. I feel that too. Congregational singing has long been a core part of my religious practice as a Unitarian Universalist. All of us together, voices joined, creating a sound so much greater and richer than one voice alone. All of us inside the same hymn at the same time. It's a huge loss to do without that during this time of distancing. I have read the recommendations, the cautions that point out how much air movement is involved in singing, how it's probably risky to reintroduce that and can't happen until the third or fourth phase of beginning to gather together again. I understand the science. I accept it. And I'm sad. Because congregational life is about what we do together. Each of us bringing our slightly different elements to co-create something more than each individual part. Our voices, a little different from each other, and our stories, and our theologies, and our gifts, and our worries, and our questions. Bringing them all to a shared place and sharing of ourselves to gather and constitute a religious community week after week. From time to time, I hear the phrase spiritual but not religious come up. And folks sometimes wonder if that's what it means to be UU. I would say, though, that as UUs, we are spiritual and religious. Spiritual comes from the same root word as respiration. It means something having to do with the breath of life, something you do on your own to attune and connect to that breath. Religious comes from a root word meaning to gather together or to bind together. It means something you do in a community around your shared intentions. It is Membership Sunday, even in the midst of this pandemic time. It is a ritual that we observe each year, welcoming those who have decided to cross the threshold from friend of the parish to member. This year we welcome 3 new members, and on Zoom we will share in a moment to mark the occasion. And this year it's good to remember that many of us crossed that threshold at one time, choosing to move into the season of belonging to a Unitarian Universalist congregation, probably First Parish, although the magic of the internet means that folks who belong to other congregations may be watching as well. And for some of us, First Parish is not the first congregation to whom we have made commitments. Maybe making those choices to join with a congregation felt like leaping over a fire. Maybe it felt like the slow thawing of winter into spring. However it came to you, or however it might yet come to you, it is a choice that makes a difference. It seems especially appropriate that we have Membership Sunday in May, when we remember another choice which made a difference. It was on May 12th, 1961, that the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America officially combined themselves to form the Unitarian Universalist Association. This was an act of courage and commitment and hope for the future. It was one great change, which changed so many lives. In the years leading up to the merging of the AUA and the UCA, the youth groups of each organization began to meet together. They began to share what they each brought, what was similar and what was different, and what they were inspired to envision together. So these teenagers, already merged, longed for the adults of their traditions to take the leap across the differences and the unknowns. They sang a song called "We Would Be One," which made its way into the hymnal we still sing from today. As you remember the leaps that you have made and the ways they have challenged and changed you, as we breathe together in this global moment on a great threshold, as we honor the people who have decided this year to become members of First Parish, let us join in singing hymn number 318, "We Would Be One." Although we must sing in our separate locations, may we still be lifted up together by these shared words of aspiration.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other, to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
As we come to the close of this time of worship, I invite you to join with me in extinguishing your chalice or your candle or tapping the flame on the Worship Web app. And as you do, remember that even as we extinguish these small flames, we keep alight within us the fire of change and connection. Please join with me now in singing one more of our aspirational commitments, our benediction, choose to bless the world.
With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world. With our minds and our hearts and our hands, may we choose to bless the world.
In this time, on this great threshold, may you bless the world by taking time to be present with what is, by being alert to what may begin unfolding, by staying home and washing your hands and faithfully distancing for a little while longer in the service of all. And may you bless the world by caring for your heart and making the leap to offer and to accept connection and help as you can. May you be well. I love you.